Here's a couple things that might be helpful overall about your test tomorrow. Your test is a 50-50 split between 9.4 and 9.5. It's 13 questions on your test tomorrow. And 10.1, 2, and 3, that's 12 questions on your test tomorrow. 25 questions total. You earn every point. Okay? So, get them all right, 100, miss them all, there's no cushion there. Okay? So, obviously, we're not going to have anybody on the downside of that, but it's 25 questions, 4 points apiece. So, your first section is your formula. Your formulas. Okay? So we're going to start off by writing down our formulas to find volume. Number 1, what is the formula to find the volume of a cylinder? Go ahead and write it down. V equals pi r squared h. Okay, next one, let's do the cone. The volume of a cone. Go ahead and write that one down. And I'm sure you can guess number 3. You could go ahead and do the volume of a sphere. So we're going to write down all 3 formulas. And it might be helpful for you to go ahead and label the formula like this is the cylinder, cone, and sphere, just in case there's some confusion. And when you're studying, you can say, oh yeah, that's the cylinder, and then, you know, the differences. All right, so what is the cone? V equals?
1/3 pi r squared h.
Awesome. And what is the sphere?
V equals 4/3 pi r cubed.
Yes, to the 3rd power. Okay, so if you don't know these formulas, there's no chance you can get any of the first 12 questions on your test correct. If you start with the wrong formula, it doesn't matter if you plug in the numbers correctly and even do the math correctly. If you're not using the right formula, you can't get the question right. So these 3 formulas are critically important for you to know on your test tomorrow. All right, so I'm not going to tell you what kind of shape this is, but on number 4, based on the diagram, I want you to find the volume of this object. Okay, so what formula am I going to use? V equals, yes, cylinder, pi 3.14 times the radius squared. Caitlin, what is the radius for this figure?
6.
Very good. So 12 was the diameter. How did I know it was the diameter? I had a couple people ask me this yesterday on the quiz. Maya? The line goes all the way across. So when I see that, I know that that dimension is diameter. I cut it in half for the radius. 6 squared is not 12. Now, I've seen that careless mistake because I know everybody in the entire 8th grade knows what 6 squared is. 6 squared is 34, or, oh my goodness, 36, okay? So it's not 12, but still we see that mistake happening just because you're just not thinking about it. So make sure, don't do what I did and say the wrong number when you actually know what the answer is, okay? So 3.14, and I want to see this step where you evaluate to the 2nd power, times 36 times 5, and then your answer, 565.2. If you got a -1 on your quiz, it's probably because of the label. All right, so just check that label. Who got that right? 565.2. Who got it right? Okay, questions? Questions? All right, guys, number 5. All right, so number 5, you have this figure. And you need to solve for the unknown dimension. Oh, and while I'm thinking about it, the last problem we did, number 4, there's actually 3 figures. You're going to do a cone, a cylinder, and a sphere for volume. So that's actually 3 questions in that section for volume. And then for number 5, for the unknown dimension, you actually have another, let me see, it's another 2 questions for the unknown dimension. All right, so we're actually already through the first 8 problems on your test after we solve this one.
Yeah, I probably got this wrong.
All right, so what formula am I using? Maya?
V equals 1/3 pi r squared.
Very good. So in V, it already tells me is 800. So plug that in for V. 1/3, what is the value I use for pi?
3.14.
And then what is my radius?
4 squared.
4 squared, and then I don't know h, okay? So here's what I need to do. And remember, we're getting away from using the fraction button, okay? So you need to understand what 1/3 means. 1/3 means you're dividing the product, whatever this is, by 3, okay? So what is 4 squared? Just tell me. What's 4 squared? 16 times 3.14 is 50.24. You need to write that. Then 1/3, just like if I said half, okay, well, what's half of 100? 50. Okay, so if I'm taking 1/3 of a number, I'm dividing by 2 or by 3, right? Just like I divided by 2 for half. All right, so 1/3 of something is dividing by 3. 800 equals 16.75. Now, say I rounded to 16.8. I'm not going to deduct, and this is another reason the work is so important. If I can see a clear path to your answer, I'm not going to take off if your answer is 1/10 of a point off or 100th of a point off. Divide both sides by 16.75 and your answer should be 47.8. Okay, were you on track to get to that answer? Any questions? Okay, so moving on to number 6 now. On number 6, I give you 4 questions, guys, where you no longer have a picture of the figure, but it's actually a sentence or a statement. So listen to this statement. The radius of a globe is 2.5 inches. Find the volume. Find the volume. The radius of a globe is 2.5 inches. Find the volume. So you're going to have these real life objects. Okay? If I said a can of soda, you know that's what shape? Cylinder. A cylinder. If I said an ice cream cone, cone. If I said a globe, a sphere. Okay, so you do need to know that. What about a cabinet knob, like to a cabinet, a knob? That would be a sphere as well. Okay, so some of those would be helpful for you for your test tomorrow. But here we say the radius of a globe is 2.5 inches. Find the volume. The only difference is you don't have the picture to look at anymore. You just have the sentence or the statement. All right, so volume equals 4/3 pi r to the 3rd power. Now, we're going to treat the whole fraction component of this the same way that we treated it with cone. I need to multiply everything that's not part of the fraction first, and then I will multiply that number by the fraction. Okay, so what is 2.5 to the 3rd power? It's like 15. 15.6. Okay, and then multiply that by 3.14. And I get 4/3 times 49.1. And if you say 0.65, that's fine too. Okay, so that's, again, we're doing a little bit of rounding in our work, but if it's a little different between, that's not going to change our answer dramatically. Now, what you need to remember, guys, all right, and what's going to be helpful, we just took the SATs, and we saw in the SATs that most of the time, and this is the same case with your college test, they don't let you use a calculator. So how do I know what I'm doing here? I'm multiplying this fraction times 49.1. What am I doing? What am I doing, Mason? Yes, this is the same thing as 4/3 times 49.1 over 1. So I'm multiplying 4 times 49.1. And what is that going to be?
That's 196.25.
And then I'm dividing that, by 3. Okay, 196.25. Divide that by 3 to get to my answer, 65.4 inches to the 3rd power. Okay, so I need to see that breakdown. If you go straight from substitution to answers, especially when there's a fraction in the formula, you're going to lose some points there. Okay, because what I think is use the fraction button, and that fraction button you're not allowed to have that kind of a calculator. So that's not doing you any good at all to be dependent on that button. All right. So just make sure you show that work. All right. Number 6 is done. Now number 7. The volume of a sphere is 1,500 pi feet to the third power. Find the radius. The volume of a sphere is 1,500 pi feet to the third power. Find the radius. Okay, is it 1,500 that I'm plugging in for volume? No, because of that pi symbol. So what do I have to multiply 1,500 by? 3.14. So it's 4710 equals 4/3, that's part of my formula, times 3.14, and I don't know the radius. Okay, so based on what we just talked about in the on the last slide, we should know what work we need to show here. 4/3 times 3.14. We don't just want to write an answer. Okay, so step 2, you're going to show me 12.56 divided by 3, and then your r to the third. What you're showing me here is you multiplied 4. Oh, sorry. You multiplied 4 times 3.14, okay, to get 12.56, and then you understood, you divided that by 3 to get 4710 equals 4.186. Again, and technically that 6 is repeating. R to the third. Now divide both sides by 4.186. If you said 187, that's accurate. If you said 4.19, that's close enough to accurate. Divide by 4.186.
You said 4.2 if you guys did 10.
Yeah, I'd probably try to keep that at least to the 100th place until you get to your answer, because your answer is rounding to the 10th. 4710 divided by 4.186. It's just not going to affect your answer that much. So 1125.2.18 equals r to the third. All right, Trey, what do I need to do now? One more step. Cube root it. Cube root it. Okay, so the cubed root of 1125 is 10.4. Okay, r is approximately 10.4, and what was it, feet? Okay. All right, did anybody get that answer before I did? Okay, that's great. This is definitely one of the more difficult problems. You can see it took up a whole screen, right? Okay, so that's number 7. Number 8, so now we're going to switch gears to the second half of your test, which is decimals and fractions. When you flip your test over tomorrow, you should breathe a sigh of relief, because this is definitely something that's very doable for you to do really, really well on. Number 8, -5/22 to a decimal. Can I just multiply the fraction by something, by some number? No, why? Yes, so you look at the denominator. If 22 can go into one of my place values, meaning 10th or 100th, you can just multiply it. But 22 doesn't, so because of that, I need to do long division. Which number goes inside?
5.
Yeah, 5 goes on the inside, and then 22 on the outside. Don't forget your answer's negative. Okay, don't forget that. Just go ahead and put it in your answer. All right, because even I'll forget it. I'm actually pretty sure I forgot it last class. Okay, so don't forget the negative's in there. Okay, and now I have 0.2, and I just keep multiplying. All right, so we're not going to take a ton of time on this. All right, but remember, I keep multiplying and dividing until I see a pattern, and that pattern is that the 2 and the 7 are repeating, but not the first 2. So that repeating bar needs to only go over the second 2 and 7. So, number 9. 0.82 as a fraction. Do not go directly to the final answer. You have to show me some work here that shows that you understand what the actual place value of this decimal means in a fraction. It's very important. This is something that is very simple to do, but if the first thing you do is pick up your calculator, you're probably going to miss the step and you're going to lose 8 very simple points on your test tomorrow. What is the fraction you need to write that is represented by this decimal, Eric?
Oh, I was going to ask a question. Do you want us to simplify the answer?
It needs to be simplified ultimately, but the first thing you need to write is what, Jace?
0.82 over 100.
Not 0.82.
0.2 over 100.
No. And that's kind of proving my point right there. We might know the answer, but do we know what the 0.82 actually looks like in a fraction? Sarah? No, just write it in a fraction, guys. Okay, so the 2 is in what place? The hundreds place. So Sherelle, what is it as a fraction? 82 over 100. You need to show that in a fraction, that you understand that's 82 hundredths, and then reduce it to 41 over 50. That's what your calculator gives you. The 82 over 100 missing shows me that you don't understand the place value. Okay? And that's the whole point of that section, is that you understand place value. All right, so please do that. If you got that wrong, which many people did on their quiz, and I'm sure that a lot of you actually knew how to do it, that's what I'm looking for. All right, numbers 10, 11, and 12. This is 12 points on your test tomorrow. It's very important. Are these numbers rational or irrational? And then make sure to include the category. If it's rational, what kind of a rational number? If it's irrational, that's because it is non-terminating and non-repeating. All right, go ahead and answer these 3. And we have, I think, 15 problems total, so we're getting close to the end. Square root of 36, true or false? All square roots are irrational numbers. False. Some square roots are, yeah, absolutely. So in order to know that, I need to actually take the square root of the number. It might look like it's going to be irrational. Now, this one doesn't. But it might end up being a terminating decimal. You don't know until you take the square root. Now, we all know the square root of 36 is what? 6. Okay? And 6 is what kind of a number? Rational whole number. Another category that it fits is an integer. Terminating decimal technically, but technically there's no decimal value in the number, so I would say that's probably the least answer that I would accept. What about number 11? The cubed root of 27. Maya, what do you think? Negative.
Irrational repeating decimal.
Okay, she's got part of it right. What is the cubed root of 27? What is it?
Negative.
Yeah, 3 or negative 3 because there's a negative out in front. 3 times 3 times 3 is 27. So the cubed root of 27, and then there's a negative out front, is negative 3. Okay? So now that I've evaluated and I can see the value, what kind of a value is this? Is it rational or irrational? Rational. And what kind of a number is it?
Integer.
It's an integer. Is it a whole number? No, because it's negative. Whole numbers are only positive. All right, what about number 12, Trey?
I have a question.
Sure.
So if you didn't write whole number for number 10,
You're going to lose 2 points. Okay, Mason? Yes, what is number 12?
It is.
Okay. Yes. So I have so many people that are saying irrational on this because they see that it goes on forever. However, the other side of that is it has to be non-repeating. I see that the 3 is repeating. That makes it rational. All right? Because it is a repeating decimal. You can just say rational repeating. Number 13. I want you to approximate the square root of 10. You have 2 problems on your test tomorrow, 8 points, to the nearest integer and to the nearest tenth. On the integer, you must show me high and low the perfect squares that surround 110. This is showing me, you understand when you round it, why? Because it's closer to one of your perfect squares. There's only a few that we learned, so we're going to kind of keep it in that range. All right, so what is the perfect square? Below 110 and above 110. What's the one below 110? 100. And what's the one above 110? This is about as close to an even split as it comes, right? Because 110 to 100 is a difference of what? 10. And 110 to 121 is a difference of 11. So it's not much, but it's closer to 100. Very good. 10. So you're going to say approximate, and you don't have to write those up there. Okay, but it's approximately 10. All right, now use your calculators to do the 10th. The 10th, you don't have to show work. Ethan, what is it? 10.5. Okay, all right, number 14. Okay, I'm going to ask you which one is greater. I'm going to ask you which one is greater. I'm giving you 2 problems on your test. Again, when you flip it over to the back side of your test, you should kind of breathe a sigh of relief because these are definitely questions that you are capable of answering. Which one is bigger? Here's what you can't do. You can't just say, oh, the square root of 56 or 8 without some kind of proof that you actually understand which one is bigger. So what do you think would be the proof? Sherelle?
Do the square root of 56.
Do the square root of 56. Now, do you have to write the entire decimal? No. Just need to write enough of the decimal that shows that it's clearly smaller than 8. And then you box an 8. Okay, 2 problems, guys, 8 points. We should be like, yay, that's awesome, okay? All right, last question from your quiz and last question on your test. Pythagorean Theorem. A squared plus B squared equals C squared. Okay, so on number 15, all right, a swimming pool is in the shape of a right triangle. So you can sketch this. Okay, all right, and it says one leg has a length of 8 feet. The other leg has a length of 12 feet. What is the length of the hypotenuse? It will say that word. Estimate the length of the hypotenuse to the nearest integer. What is an integer? The ones place. That means it has no decimal value. So, what do I do here? A squared plus B squared equals C squared. All right, and does it matter if 8 is your A or 12 is your A? No, your legs are interchangeable because you're just adding, so that doesn't matter. So you have 8 squared plus 12 squared equals C squared. All right, 64 plus 144. That's going to be 210?
208.
208? Okay, I was close. 208 equals C squared. I had a good handful of students stop here and just boxed in 208 as their answer. What did they forget to do? Square root it. Square root it. And C is approximately 14.4, which rounds to the nearest integer, 14 feet. Yes. This is the last question on your test. Okay, guys, and I know I've said this several times in the review, very doable for you to score very high on my test tomorrow. We have a 24-minute review video on YouTube. You need to take advantage of that. You might not watch the whole thing, but you can fast forward it and watch what you need to see another review on. This is a very thorough review over the concepts you need to know for your test tomorrow.